That's me.
Location fits into it. So the long and the short of it is.
Absolutely. How about at the end of the day, do you do anything? Like, I'm really fascinated by rituals. Hello and welcome to the Rask Network. What you're about to hear and see limited to general financial planner, or refer to our financial services guide available at rask.com.au/FSG before acting on the information. Good afternoon. Fashionably early, I would say. 12:06 is pretty good for us. And welcome to Rask Invest Live. My name's Owen Rask, and we've got a special treat for you today. We'll be joined by Effie Zahos in just a moment. You can probably hear that I'm joining you from a different location. It maybe sounds a little bit echoey, and that's because we've just moved in here, and I'm trying to work with these headphones. So apologies for the audio, but hopefully you can hear me loud and clear. I've got a treat because we're going to introduce you to a bit of a test that I, by the way, did not get a perfect score on. Effie assures me it was a pretty good score, but you know, when it comes to finance, I was hoping for a perfect score, no pressure on me. So hopefully y'all can do better than me. But we're going to have Effie join us in just a moment and talk about this, the test, the quiz, Test Your Invest Smarts, it's called. And I'd love for y'all to take it and see how you go and report back. But it's probably one that we can go through a little bit today, and then in your own time. It's probably worth clicking on once we say good afternoon and goodbye to Effie. In the meantime, we can enjoy her insights and what she has to offer. Now, I do have a few slides. I obviously didn't have to prepare as many this time, but Rask Invest Live is brought to you by us, of course. It's brought to you by Pocketsmith, Navexa, Superguide, Perla, all these wonderful partners that you will hear from over time. But we go live for 60 minutes every week. If you haven't already subscribed, may as well do that now. It takes virtually no time at all. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube is the way to go. So I know some people join us every week from Twitter or X. I don't know whether to call it X or Twitter. Probably Twitter's, I'm still a bit of a legacy user, so maybe I'm a bit of a Twitter kind of guy. But also on Facebook, if you're joining us from Facebook, don't forget to head over to YouTube as well. I feel like YouTube's the new Facebook anyway, so maybe it's worth the commute. Just a quick warning here, we may talk about things like investing, we talk about things like super, or talk about all different types of stuff, even bank accounts. It's really important that I do issue this warning that any of the information that you do hear today is strictly limited to general financial information only. It's not the type of information you would get from your financial planner because it does not take into account your needs, goals, or objectives. And because of that, you should seek out the advice of a licensed, and I say trusted, financial planner. You can find a financial planner by heading to moneysmart.gov.au, and you can search for the financial advisor register there, and you can see what qualifications they have, as well as their education and training. It's actually a wonderful resource, and it's updated regularly. So they've made it really easy to find a licensed financial planner is the key phrase there, I guess. You can also find out about us by visiting our financial services guide, or FSG. It lays out the kind of a thing that Rask does, how we do it, how we get paid, and so on. Okay, so Rask Invest Live is free. It's every Thursday. It's at 12 midday for those of us on the eastern side of Australia. If you're out west, hello, good morning to you. If you're joining us from somewhere overseas, as some people do, I don't know if it's good evening, good morning, good night to you, but welcome to Rask Invest Live. So we're going to be joined by Effie Zahos in just a moment. And there's a bit of a bio here. Now, Effie's bio is actually significantly longer than this because she's so great, but I couldn't fit it all on the page. So I'm going to let you kind of have a look at this here right now. But you probably know Effie from Channel 9's Today Show, radio. Maybe you've read some of her books. Maybe you've heard her on podcast or seen her in interviews or on social media. So Effie was editor-at-large of CanStar for 4 years and now acts as an ambassador for the comparison site. She was also editor of Money Magazine until 2019. Having helped establish it in 1999, she's passionate about financial literacy. We're going to go into that in just a moment. She holds a Bachelor of Economics degree from UQ, which is actually a very high-profile university, particularly for finance, if I do say so. She is the proud mother of 2 children who are beginning to build on their own financial freedom. Now I will bring Effie into the chat. Effie, welcome to Rask Invest Live.
Hello. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me, Owen.
It's always a pleasure to chat with you, Effie. And I know people that know you personally, and they're just like, gosh, she's just such a lovely person to be around. You just bring positive energy to everyone. So
They don't know me then, do they?
yeah, no. But
ask my kids. Maybe ask my kids what I'm really like.
But I heard something from a friend recently who said that, clear is kind, in that sometimes you've got to be clear with your kids, and they don't always get that might be the kind words or the important words that they need to hear. So clear can be kind, Effie, and we're so grateful to have you on the show. Now, you've written books, you've done so many different things over the years. People see you on the tally, and you're known for many things. But one of the things that you've worked on recently, and something that I know you've done before, is you brought out this idea, or this thing, which we'll call Test Your Invest Smarts, because that's what's showing here right on the screen. Now, this is an initiative that you've put forward to try and help people understand where they're at financially, with their financial literacy. Tell us a little bit about this and what you've found so far. And I'll drop a link in the chat.
Yeah. So look, not just myself, the team at InvestSmart put this together and did a brilliant job. I mean, the concept and idea really came about, and I have done quizzes before, and I do love a good quiz myself. And the idea here is that I wanted to actually test more so the literacy around investing. And the reason being, obviously, it links up well. I'm the Chief Content Officer for InvestSmart. It links up well to build it with someone like InvestSmart. And Maria Beck-Yaris is also a major player in putting this together. When you look at how people build wealth, often, the first port of call is that we're obsessed with property, Owen. Everyone kind of understands how property works, and that's the big dream to buy property. And then when you look at property prices and how they're continuing to go, in some states, like I think Perth, the median house has gone up by over like 150 or something ridiculous for the year. And now, if interest rates do move, they're expected to go down rather than up. What impact's that going to have onto the property market? Even though it's slowly, easing a little bit when you look at the numbers, it just seems that this is an asset class that you need some serious cash to jump into. And so then to really build wealth outside of property, you need to kind of understand a little bit, because I think for me, my biggest problem when I was starting out was fear of jumping in. And I think I spoke to this last time when I was on your podcast. Like, I really just stumbled into investing and I didn't really know much about it. I'm glad I just did. I just jump in and bought a whole lot of banks because I thought, hold it, I'm being charged a fortune here. What happens if I invest in them? So I kind of did stumble into it, but for me, it was that fear of jumping in. So the idea here was to come up with a simple quiz. And when I mean simple, I don't mean the questions may not be simple. And clearly the results did show that, my gosh, there is a big gap in financial literacy when it comes to investing. So 15 questions, everything from can you spot a scam to super, to say capital gains tax, to investing in exchange traded funds is asked in those 15 questions. So we took this test and gave it to YouGov, commissioned them to take it out to the market and said, hey, test this with, Aussies all around Australia, different age brackets and so on, and let's see what we get. What we got back was really surprising. I didn't expect the numbers to be great, but I didn't expect the results to come in so bad. So I know you did the test, Owen, and you did really well. I would hate to have you as a child, because if you think you did bad, you're really hard on yourself. You got what, 14 out of 15? I
did. Same as Cam in the chat. Yeah. So
yeah. Okay. There you go. So yeah. Okay. Cam, 14 out of 15. Market moguls. Well, let me tell you, not too many people got 14 out of 15. In fact, 74% of Aussies, so this is the one that the YouGov ran through, that was over 1,000 people, failed this test. That's just
Wow.
crazy. 74%. The median score was only 5 out of 15. So when you bring in a score like 15, you know your stuff. But you know what? I'll probably expect someone like you, Owen, to actually do well. But as someone pointed out, and I think it was Mr. Leftovers there, and I love that name because I do love leftovers, said that Stephen Main. So Stephen and I did, Alan's away on a holiday at the moment, Alan Kohler, and I sat in on his podcast. I hope I didn't do too much damage for him yesterday. But we had a lot of fun, Stephen and I, on this. And I did ask Stephen one of the questions that were asked the most incorrectly. And he got that wrong. But that's okay. I mean, as Stephen said, he's not all over super. And super keeps changing and so on. I'm sure he would have nailed the rest of the quiz. So going back to the results, if I can just punch them out quickly, 74% failed. The median score was 5 out of 15. Only 18% of women passed this test compared to men. So that obviously upsets me as a woman. And also, again, was I surprised? Well, when you look at a whole lot of different surveys, even like Hilda's survey that's done as well, it always seems to be the case that women do fall behind when it comes to some of these literacy tests. The annual income, there was definitely an income gap here. If you earned over 150,000, you would more likely have passed the test than those with a lower income. And I guess you could, if you want to read into that, is that because you've got more cash, you've got more money to play with, so you might be looking at different asset classes to jump in? That could be a reason. Baby boomers were more likely than Gen X to pass the test. Again, you've got more time on your side. You've got experience. So there's a lot of reasons there. And again, university educated Aussies were more likely to pass the investment knowledge test. And you can see there, just as it's scrolling, you were 1%, Owen, of the results that got that score. Only 1% got that top notch. So to be a market mogul, you need 14 out of 15. And then the asset apprentice is 0 to 4. The rising resources is 5 to 9. And the portfolio pro 10 to 13. So the idea here is you do the quiz. You see, what do you get wrong? Your results will all pop out at the end. But more importantly, there is detailed explanations as to why you got this question wrong, so you can learn from it. And all I'm hoping here is that people use this as a bit of a nudge to go, oh, yeah, I actually got 2 out of 15. I need to get better here. What can I do? What can I read up? How can I be more confident so I don't have that fear of jumping in? And look, also, just to let you know, if you need a motivation, there's a $10,000 portfolio that you could possibly win just by doing the quiz. But what were your thoughts? Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I've always wanted to do something like this for Rask, Effie, but I just we've never done it. And I think this is the perfect test, because what I find, even with financial professionals, like say, for example, myself, I was very lucky that when I went to uni, I did financial planning and I did applied finance. So I kind of did the investing and the financial planning. Yeah. But most finance people, and I'm sure people that are watching or listening can relate to this, is you go to, someone who says they're in finance, like, oh, can you do my tax return? Or you go to someone that is a financial planner, like, hey, can you help me with this tax issue or whatever? A lot of even the people that we think are real finance experts don't have that breadth of knowledge.
Yeah.
And I found that with this quiz, there was one questions there, which was about how to spot a scam. And that's something that you would never learn, even if you went to finance school. And I think that is the real essence of what people have to contend with when they're trying to build their own financial literacy. Is everything seems so siloed, and even the people that teach us can't teach us everything. And so trying to gel that all together, that's really difficult. And I found that this test, I'm not surprised that even people like myself don't get perfect scores, because a lot of us don't have that breadth. We might have depth in one particular element, but I found that was really interesting too. Were you surprised? I've got a question for you. Were you surprised by people who earned more. Were you surprised by that, over the 150,000 getting better scores, or not surprised?
Just because you earn, well, first of all, there shouldn't be a gap here with financial literacy based on your income. Just because you earn more, you should earn more, may have a bit more of disposable income. The thing is, we are in a cost of living crisis. We've 4 years, we've been juggling just to balance our books, to put food on the table, pay our mortgages and so on. So we haven't had a lot of spare cash. So your mind may not be in that area at the moment. Where can I put this extra $100? Oh, well, what is an exchange traded fund? Is that an easy way of going into the market, and so on? So it doesn't really surprise me, but you can earn a lot of money and still not know what to do with it. So, you could blow a lot of that money away as well. What surprised me more is basically the genders, the difference in results there, because I just don't feel there should be any reason why men can perform, get higher results in this test than women. And I did notice, if you put it up there, test your Invest Smart, so you can go directly there. But I want to ask one question, if I can, put it out there to everyone listening, just to give you a bit of a taste to see, would you actually pass this test here?
Go for it. I like this.
Okay, great. So, which of the following are considered concessional super contributions? Okay, so I don't want you guys to cheat. I want you to be honest when you lock in the answer in your head. And just to let you know, this question here, only 3% got right. Only 3% got right in this one. So again, I'll just repeat the question. Which of the following are considered concessional super contributions? A, super guarantee contributions made by your employer. B, contributions made into your super fund by the government. C, salary sacrifice contributions. D, contributions you make from your after-tax income and then claim a deduction. Or E, I don't know. And if you want to make yourself accountable, put the answer in the chat box there.
Yeah, let us know.
See. Yeah.
So while everyone's filling this in, so a mutual acquaintance, shall we say, Mitchell Snedden, who former Invest Smart team member, he actually took the test. And when I caught up with him for coffee this morning, he came to me, he said, I got 14 out of 15 right. I said, which one did you get wrong? This one.
This one,
He said this was probably the trickiest one.
So you can be more than one answer. So definitely can be more than one answer. So remember, we're talking about what is considered concessional super contributions. Is it A, what's made by your boss? Is it B, what's paid into your super fund by the government? Is it C, your salary sacrifice contributions? Is it D, what you make from your after-tax income and then claim a deduction? Or be honest, E, I don't know.
Okay, so there could be more than one. You kind of gave a little bit of a hint there.
Yeah, it could be more than one.
Could be more than one. So this is an interesting, really interesting question. But I'm while everyone's updating their thoughts on this, I'm going to share something with you. That you and I are both very privileged, that we get to speak about finance a lot, and we get to help people in the way that we do. But what a lot of people come to me with is, a lot of the times they're in a crisis kind of situation and they're just unsure. And the scam one was really interesting to me, Effie, because that's not something that is considered financial, like in knowledge. It's more considered like just keeping your wits about you, like internet safety, these types of things. But I had someone who definitely earned more than $150,000 and still does. And I caught up with them last night because they were in one of those really difficult situations. Absolutely lovely person. And he was the victim of one of those scams. And he lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And this is the reality of what finance is too. It's about keeping yourself safe. So understanding what is good, what is not good. Like, those are just, I think everyone needs to understand that. And at the moment, it seems like younger people, I find, have a better understanding of internet safety, but older people tend to have their wits about them, and more risk conscious with money itself. So it's kind of like this really weird mix. You can't take anything for granted.
Yeah, and you're right. When you look at Scam Watch, the investment scams are the number one when it comes to what people are losing from, and then I think it's romance scams. And it's interesting. There are two scam questions in this quiz, but I reckon in 2 months' time we might have to update those because they just get even cleverer. You know what I mean? Like they change, they evolve, and once you get your hand on and you get the knack of, oh yeah, that looks like a scam, we know that, you've got to move on to something else because they've changed the way that they actually can scam us. That's the thing.
Yep. So Tired Steve is a little bit late. Steve, you've just joined at the perfect time because we're getting the results to a concessional contributions question. So some people would be probably just select option E, Effie, and say, I don't even know what that means.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've seen someone come up with the answer. So I'm going to give the answer right now. It is A, C, and D. They're all concessional contributions. And I think whereas some people were thrown off was number D, probably contributions you make from your after-tax income and then claim a deduction. A lot of people forget that you can do that.
Yeah.
So a concessional contribution essentially means that there's a concession on it. There's a tax perk on it. And that is basically, instead of paying your marginal tax rate, you're only paying that 15%. And so there are three ways that you can do it. Your boss, what pays in there? The SG contributions that your boss makes, your salary sacrifice contributions when you go to your employer and go, hey, I want to actually salary sacrifice from my pre-tax dollars into it. And then it could be the other one where you maybe a lot of self-employed people may consider this. It's almost the end of the financial year. Their cash flow is a little bit better. And they think, you know what, I'll do that because I'll get a tax perk. The important thing to note is the cap is only 30,000. That actually just went up on the 1st of July. So that one was 3% of Aussies. Only 3%.
Was that the lowest score? So for a question, was that the right? Okay, so that doesn't surprise me because it's quite tricky because the rules change on this, and in particular, I think one of the reasons why people don't know about that final one, which is money in your pocket put into super, claim a tax deduction. One, it's a little bit complicated for people to do the form and fill that in, but the real reason I think is it didn't change that long ago. Like it was only a few years ago, if you remember, when you couldn't even do that. Like you had to satisfy a work test, you had to satisfy how much of your income is from like your self-employment and all this stuff. But it's a wonderful change, and it's really important to understand because we know the powers of super.
And a lot of people don't realise that 30,000 cap, that does include what your employer puts in as well. So you've got to watch that. That concessional contribution cap of 30,000 includes what you put in and what your boss puts in as well.
Yep.
Can I just say, there's another Mr. Leftovers. I'm loving that name. He did say something quite funny here. It caught my eye. I did say something yesterday on the Money Cafe that I may get a bit of hate mail. You'll be pleased to know, Mr. Leftovers, I haven't so far because I did say something like, we were talking about cash. Someone wrote in and said, how do you teach your kids about money, cash versus digital? And everyone goes on about that you should be using cash to teach them the value of money. I'm getting to the stage now that, you know what? It's like giving a kid a dial-up phone and saying, hey, call me, and they'll just look at it and go, well, what is this? How does it work? Because they're all on smartphones. So wouldn't you give your kid a smartphone to learn how to dial? So it's getting to be the same with money, I feel, that if your kids aren't savvy online, and you're talking about scams as well, if they don't know how to track their spending online, they're setting up for failure here because let's face it, we will get to a stage where virtually everything will be cashless. And so we've got to learn how to manage our money in a cashless society.
Absolutely. And like you said, I think our kids will probably think that they probably won't resonate with the education. If we go to them, well, here's some cash and here's how we're going to break it up, and they haven't used cash for weeks, they might be a bit put off, but I'm sure there's probably some more kinetic learners and people that need to understand. Of course,
there's still a place for it, but I reckon most kids will scrunch it up and throw it in the bin and think it's paper, which is quite
I'll take it.
Me too.
But I take your point. I think this is a big thing with teaching kids about money is you've got to connect with them at the level that they are, not the level that you are. And I think that parents and grandparents often try to educate kids with, say, for example, your BHP shares. Kids not really interested in BHP shares. They might be interested in Nike shares or maybe Roblox. That's more of a tangible example. Or maybe when you're at the checkout, you can look and see the names of the products and services. And it's just about connecting with them where they are. I feel like that's really important, but I'm obviously not the expert here. You are, Effie, and
mine are a bit older now. So I've got the 23-year-old, and you'll be pleased to know she has bought her first property. So she's just graduated uni. She's done a honors with engineers. She ended up with. Wow. So she's done very well, and she's bought her first place. And you're probably wondering, how does a student, well, not a student now, first year out, buy a place? She basically invested in ETFs at a young age as well, and basically kind of mixed and matched strategies on saving. Yes, the bank of mum and dad did come in the end. I hate to say this, Owen, but only because she got gazumped a couple of times, and in the end we helped pay off her HEX debt because that increased her borrowing power. So no,
that's fair. Rusty says, easy way to teach kids is to show them a compounding calculator. Worked with my daughter, Rusty. I'd love to know how old they were when you showed them that, because that's definitely something that changed my life. Dosi, if I pronounce that correctly, says, lol, BHP shares is my dad's answer to all finance questions. And to be honest, you're not alone there. It is so common that that's the answer. I would really like everyone, and not to put Tired Steve on the spot, but if you are watching this and you have taken the quiz, feel free to let us know what stumped you, or like what tripped you up, or how you went, even if you're brave enough to share. We've got one question that's come through from Percy, which we could probably just have a quick look at, and then maybe we'll get into some of these money tips other than the ones you've already given us. So isn't non-concessional when it's after tax and then the government makes a contribution? So that is a really good point. You picked up on the point, Percy, that Effie was alluding to earlier on, which is that the question might have got you because it said after tax, but then there was a tax deduction, Effie.
Yeah, correct. Spot on. Yeah. So you can make a contribution with your after-tax money, and that would be considered non-concessional. But if you're below your threshold and you claim that tax deduction, as Owen was saying, yes, there is some paperwork you've got to do. You've got to do it by a certain date as well. Then that can be considered as concessional, because then you get that tax benefit.
Yeah, whereas in the past, the only real option that most people had was the salary sacrifice. Whereas now you don't need to rely on your employer. Like if you're the type of person like I was, frankly, that didn't want to go speak to the finance manager at payroll and whatever and say, hey, can you do this for me? It's going to be a little bit more admin for you. If you're that type of person, you don't have to worry about that as much, although it's still a really good strategy. You can now make your own contributions.
So congrats, Kylie. 12 out of 15. You've got a pretty savvy audience here.
Well, this is me deliberately asking for everyone to come up with good answers, and
12 out of 15.
Let's have a look, everyone. How good are we really? Like, we tune in every week.
You've got a few market moguls. Well done. And make sure you do enter in the comp, because
you may as well.
A few people are missing out the 10K portfolio.
Oh, wow. So Russa, you did follow up, and you said you first discovered that compound interest calculator at 19. I've got to admit that was probably about the age that I first interacted with it, maybe a tiny bit earlier. And I think if you're watching this or listening to this and you've got kids from say 16 to 25, even adults, let's be honest, like fully formed adults, that age group in particular is really susceptible in a good way to a compound interest calculator, because they can see how small changes can make huge differences. 13 out of 15, 14 out of 15, Effie, Colin got 13.
That's good. Oh, and can I just also say with kids too, is what I showed mine is the compound calculator, but on a debt situation, just to scare the bejeebers out of them so they understand how personal debt, compound interest can also work with personal debt. It's just the reverse of it in a bad way. That's what I meant by that. So it's really important that they understand that, especially if they're starting to look at getting maybe getting a car and getting personal debt on that. I get it. Most kids don't have the money to buy a car straight out, right? Parents don't want to or can't, whatever the case may be. But if they are getting debt, they've got to understand that interest, is virtually compounding. So knock it off as fast as you can. And I bet you if you showed them an amortization schedule on that car loan, they'll just think, are you kidding me?
That's another one. It's kind of like the complete opposite direction, right? That's what we're familiar with. Matthew, yeah, you almost need to buy Roblox for everyone, to be honest. So, Effie, now the title of this show is 7 Ways I Save Money. And I couldn't imagine a better guest talking about this type of thing than you. But we have these kind of, I guess, kind of like episodic things where we bring people on to share some of their own stories and what have you. And I'm really keen to understand what are some of the ways, maybe these could be like, for here and now with the cost of living. It could be long-term things that you've done to save money. I'm just curious what you've come up with.
Okay, so look, I do this day in, day out. So when I saw this, I thought, oh, this will be a piece of cake. And some of them I follow myself, of course. Others I don't, because they don't relate to the products or what I have. So for those of you who don't know me, I've got a little spot on the Today Show every morning where I do basically just do this, kind of give some money hacks, some information, some bite-sized pieces. For me, what I do twice a year, and I think I've told you this before on your show, is basically old school. I will look at my digital footprint and I will highlight, whether it's the whole year, but that's getting quite a lot now with tapping and going, a section of my statements, fixed costs and discretionary costs in 2 different colors. And you'll just see a flood of color with your discretionary costs, all the tap and go. And don't even get me started on the surcharging. I know the RBA is looking at that, and how they've now just done the loophole here. The way the merchants have done it is basically saying, well, instead of charging debit cards a smaller fee and your Amex a larger one, we'll just have one flat fee, which is so unfair, because if I'm using my debit card and the guy in front of me has got his Amex black, I'm essentially paying for his points. But highlight your fixed and your variable, and then I go line by line. And I will look at everything I have, my regular household bills, and ask, what am I paying? Do I still need all these features? What can I do better at? And automatically there, so I've looked at numbers here by moving from the average to the cheapest or best value. There's about $14,000 in savings. That includes your mortgage. And I'll just give you a bit of a hint. If you've got a mortgage right now, the average variable rate is sitting around 6.8. We had the Fed come in yesterday and reduced. This morning was it? Yeah, this morning reduced it by 50 basis points.
Big move.
Yeah, it was a huge move. You can read into that. How did they overshoot? They're trying to stop from going into a recession or so on. Now, what does that mean for us? I think there's a lot of talk that's been happening, 4 rate cuts next year and so on. These are all predictions. I think if you've got a homeowner right now and you're paying 6.8, you've got to understand you could already make about $400 or $500 saving per month immediately by refinancing. The cheapest on the market right now is 5.5. That's a huge difference. That's 1 year fix. And you'll probably be thinking, should I lock in for 1 year? What if rates fall? This is your decision. It's very personal. But if you're paying 6.88 and you can lock in for 1 year at 5.1, the rates would have to fall by 1.38% in 12 months for you to think, oh my goodness, I've done a mistake. I guess my tip there is, what are you paying? Can you do better?
Sorry, Effie, just real quick. Did you say before, when you went line by line through things, did you say you went from the cheapest to the best value? Is that what you said?
I would look, sometimes you just want the cheapest product because you don't care about, for me, if I'm looking at a home loan, if I had that, I'd be looking at, I'm not into bells and whistles there. I just want to pay a cheap rate. So for me, cheap there. For my health insurance, no, I don't want it cheap. Actually, this is another hack with your health insurance. If you do have it and you have not used the perks that come with it, you're crazy. So get onto your health insurer, get onto the member rewards. So I'll give you an example. With mine right now, I can get 3% off my e-gift card for Coles, and the same with Woolworths. I can get up to 5% on a restaurant card if I want to go out for that weekend and use it, and 45% off the cinemas. So I actually use my health insurer quite a lot, depending on what I want to buy. If the kids need something from JB Hi-Fi, well, they're not kids anymore. They can buy it themselves. But there is gift cards there as well. And I actually did a story on Today's Show with a lady that her health insurance was around $2,800. The discount she got by using all this, doing all her shopping, was almost on par with what her health insurance cost. So
wow.
basically, her savings are paying off her health insurance.
Wow.
So you've got to do that. The other one that I like using is stacking your discounts. So what I mean by that, let's say you love Telstra. You love Telstra because you love the network. You're paying probably $65 per month now because they've increased their payments for a 50 gigabyte plan. You could go to Everyday Mobile, which is Woolworths, and which is under the Telstra provider. So the same provider, you love Telstra, still on the same provider, get 55 gigabytes, so 5 gigabytes more, and save $25 per month by doing that. So you've changed plans, but still the same provider, pocketed $25 per month, yeah? Then here's the stacking discount. Stack that because you're now with Everyday Mobile, you get 10% off your Woolworths shop. So you get up to $50 extra there. So already that's $75 per month by stacking your discounts. So it's just being clever with who you're with and what they got for your business as well.
I like that. I really like that. And that's always the big fear for people with changing mobile
I've
networks.
just got my boss just doing a live with Owen on. He wants me out of the room soon. So no.
Okay, so far I've got 3, Effie. I've got line by line in the household bill. We've got health insurance. And we've got stacking your discounts.
Yeah.
Now, Jared just quickly chimed in and says, got 8 out of 15. You know what, Jared, thank you for sharing. That means the next time you take it, you're going to be.
You know what? You've
14.
done better than the median score, which was 5 out of 15. So that's really good.
I love it. There's plenty of upside in that. So that's great. Okay, so we're almost through the list.
One thing that bugs me, and this is a bit of a way to save as well. We're told about bill smoothing. We're told, hey, if you can't pay annually, pay monthly.
Yep.
Well, let me tell you, check that out before you actually do it. Because I've noticed in my own home and contents insurance, the difference was around $1,000 by paying monthly. So the monthly premium was a little bit higher than my annual. So over the year, it was going to cost me $1,000 more to pay monthly. Now, I obviously said no to that, but I do budget and I've got a bill account. So my money is there when my insurance comes in November. I understand for some people, you just don't have that money available because home and contents insurance is quite expensive, around $3,000. I've seen policies up to $26,000. So what do you do then? What do you do if you don't have that money and, you can only pay monthly, but you don't want to pay $1,000 extra because of that convenience? This is a hack I would only advise if you are diligent, if you are good with your money. I'd be looking for a zero balance card with no fee and using that card to pay my actual insurance and then pay that back in monthly installments before you actually exit out of that, interest-free period. Take care though, because this is all going to line up and stack up. Or you might as well give that insurer the flick and find someone that doesn't charge you a premium for paying monthly. So watch that out.
That makes sense. And I didn't know that the savings could be so significant. That is quite significant. Okay, so far so good. You've probably saved us, let's be honest, depending on who we are, maybe a few grand a year. So I'm liking this. Where can we go next?
Well, I don't know too many people that make a few grand in 50 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's true, right? A famous investor that once appeared on our show said to me off air, he said, because he saw what we did and he knew that he was coming in for an investing conversation, but he said, it's so much easier to just educate people on their finances than tell them what the next best investment is. And it's so much more effective because you can't ever invest your way out of a savings mistake, but you can save your way out of an investing mistake. And I thought that was really elegant, the way that he said that, because a lot of people think, well, I'll just earn more or I'll just invest better and I'll be okay. But it doesn't really cover up that bad habit, which is kind of not having a good savings hygiene, I suppose. So number 5, Effie.
Number 5. This one I do as well. Look for bonuses. So what I mean by that, any cashback deals or bonuses. So in the energy sector, they're huge. You can now, swap, say, with NG Energy and get $400 in bill credit. That's in Victoria and New South Wales only, and then $350 for South Australia and so on. So the idea here, and there's 2 tips here. The first thing I would do with energy bills, I would look at my actual energy statement. At the end of last year, there's a little box that sits in your energy bill that says, hey, Owen, you could be saving $100 more by moving to one of our cheaper plans that we've got. So that's an easy way. It's, it doesn't take too much effort. You just read your actual statement. The other thing is I'd probably then go to Energy Made Easy, or even I know CanStar Blue has this as well. There's quite a few places you can go. Upload your bill or put your NIM number there. It will read your energy plan and then it will spit out basically cheaper plans for you. Energy Made Easy is very easy to use, and I've done that myself as well. And then if all else fails, there's nothing stopping you taking some of these cashback deals. You take the deal, you grab the money, it comes on your first bill, and then you go, see you later, I'm going to someone else.
Yep.
And a lot of people do that, and a lot of people did that with cashback home loans, Owen. During COVID, there was like over 30 lenders giving money away just to refinance your loan. I can tell you now, you can get up to $10,000 in a cashback by refinance. Wow. Yeah, you got to have a serious mortgage for that one. You need $2 million mortgage on that. Typically, you get about $3,000 on these cashbacks. And that one that has a $10,000 cashback, it's got a condition. You've got to stay with them for 2 years. But the other ones don't. The other ones can be up to 60 days. So there's nothing stopping you from taking the $4,000, from taking the $3,000, hanging around for 90 days, 60 days, then moving to another one. So I do know people that have made up to $15,000 in cashbacks by doing this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are pretty substantial, depending on the size of. That would be
if
pretty
you've got the energy. Look, at the end of the day, with all this, your product's got to stack up. Yeah. Would I move $100 for $100? Well, it depends what I need. Like if there's no strings attached and you've got the effort, you can go for it. But at the end of the day, the product needs to stack up.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I know of a few of those energy comparison government run ones where you can just pretty much put your address in, check, and they might even credit you some cash. So no, these are really good. Now, I'm also conscious of that you might need to give up that office space. So we've got a couple more for folks. What else can you give to us, Effie?
Oh, you want more? Okay.
Do you have any more? Is that?
Yeah. We can,
okay,
so you go for longer if you want.
No. That's fine.
One that I'm very passionate about, super. I know that they keep tweaking it, and I know people have a love-hate relationship with. I get it, and look, I know someone like my daughter. Someone just said, will that dent your credit score though? Yes, your credit score would definitely be impacted in the sense that where we're talking about cashback deals with your home loan, it could be a case of please explain why you're refinancing. And then it is a case that a lot of them will know, oh, you're doing the cashbacks. They probably won't like you. And it will be a case that you will have to explain. Absolutely. And I'm glad you raised that. That's a good point.
Yeah. Good point.
Your super, for someone my age, it means a no-brainer. Preservation age is 60. It's around the corner almost, Owen. So I don't mind pumping in as much as I can, not only for the concessional contributions, but more so the tax on what it earns is very good for me. But would I say that for my daughter who's 23? She's got other priorities at the moment, and who knows what super may look like when she retires. But an easy thing here, what to do is your super statement should have come through by now. You'll be able to check that online. They come through August and September, so you should be in your inbox. Basically, just make sure you're not getting ripped off. I would obviously look at your performance and return, but add up all your fees, and sometimes they break them down into different sections on page 1 and 2. Add up all your fees. And then divide it by your balance and multiply that by 100. That will give you a percentage. And if you're in a balanced fund, you want to hope that's below 1%. Otherwise, start looking at what fees you're paying on your super.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Effie, you've given us a bucket load of savings tips, I will say. It's been my absolute pleasure, and everyone here's absolute pleasure to have you join us over your lunch break. So clearly everyone can see how passionate you are, but we still really do appreciate your time, and we'll put a link into the show notes, of course, to test your Invest Smart, so anyone watching can go and take the quiz. And also, don't forget at the end, you can go in the draw to win $10,000 in an investment portfolio, which is absolutely wonderful. You've got books, you've got so many resources online, you're on Twitter, you're on every social channel that I follow. So people can get their Effie feel in many different ways. And once again, just thank you so much for your time, and have a lovely day.
Thank you so much, Owen. And thanks everyone for taking the quiz. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful. Thanks, Effie. That was Effie Zahos. I called her a finance rock star in my email, and I think that's the only way to describe her. I'm so grateful that she was the very first person to come and join us here on the live show and to share some of the ways that she saves. So yes, Ruste, Colin, thank you, Effie, indeed. Now, we do have, I'm going to give you a quick summary of some of the things that she just shared with us. So number one was go line by line through your household bill. I don't know about you all, but I recently did what I would call a financial detox, which is where I went through my personal finances with my wife, and we went through our household bills and cut things that we just didn't need anymore. We had so many streaming services, I couldn't believe it, and they'd all gone up in price. The second thing that I did was I did the same for my business. So for the Rask Group, which you can see on the shirt here in front of me, went through the same thing. End of financial year for any business owner, whether you're a contractor, sole trader, a freelancer, whether you're a director of a big company, doesn't matter. End of financial year, you're getting your financials done anyway. You may as well go through and check everything. Same with your tax return. You're doing your taxes anyway. How much you're paying in brokerage fees? How much you're paying in superannuation fees? Perfect time to check because you're doing the work anyway. Number two, Effie did say, look at your mortgage. Potentially, if you can lock in one of these fixed rates, or you can see interest rates are moving now, which is fantastic news for US people. It's an interesting thing. We're here talking about investing. A lot of the banks here in Australia, the way they price their mortgages is based on whatever they can get in terms of funding for those mortgages. And where do they go for their funding? A lot of them look overseas to try and get money into their bank to then lend to you. So when the US Federal Reserve comes out, in the last 24 hours and says, we're going to drop our interest rates, for the Australian banks, that can be really good news because it means that they may be able to access money cheaper and then lend it back to you. So that's good news for you. So keep on top of your bank. Number three was health insurance. Look at the benefits that are available. I'm with HCF as a private health insurance. We actually got that through my wife's business. They had an agreement and we actually got a great deal where we could use our health insurance. Two things that always come to mind with super funds and insurance of any kind is make sure you read the T's and C's. I wouldn't change health insurance or life insurance or income protection until I get good advice or until I know for sure if I'm going to have any pre-existing conditions, illnesses, things that have changed since I got my previous insurance. It's so important. Please, people, that is so important. Number four was stacking your discounts. Effie mentioned maybe you go with Telstra, then you get the different mobile network. You're with Telstra, you go to a cheaper alternative that uses the Telstra network, and then you get back into stacking that discount with another discount at Woolies. And there was a comment made from CEOs Travel which said they are with Telstra, but not every tower, so not as good for rural customers. So that's really good. Another thing here that I can see is Effie comes in with saying that maybe some of the bills that you get should be paid annually. If you can afford to do it, maybe you should pay them annually, not monthly, because you're going to be paid more. Amazon came out with the Amazon Prime service not too long ago and said, we're going to increase prices. And the price increase was, from memory, about 20 or 30%. So what I did is right before the 20 or 30% month-to-month bill increase, I locked in an annual subscription. So I saved a bit of money. The next one was cashback deals and bonuses. So she mentioned mortgages again, but also things like Energy, I think it's pronounced. You can go and you can check your bill on CanStar or Energy Made Easy. There's also government websites that allow you to compare your energy bill. And finally, using superannuation, check your fees, check your tax. It's such a good tax environment, but check the fees. So Ruste says, love the tip from Effie on the super fees. Just in my calculation, and it's 0.94%. One of the things that people can get confused with when they check their fees inside super is your insurance. Probably not the right thing to include is the insurance fee. So don't include that. Include all the other fees that you see inside your super statement. Those are the fees that you want to be comparing to your balance. not necessarily the insurance, because the insurance is like individual. It depends on how much you got and whatever. Belongs, says Jacob. Telstra, but cheaper. Yes, so many people I know are with that. Aisha, very good point. I have a child with a disability, so it's not something that's easy to learn. It is not at all. And Aisha, there are things depending on the disability, depending on even us as people who live, quote unquote, without a disability. It can be so hard to learn. I was telling one of my team members yesterday, we were going to catch up for a meeting and we're going to go over these really abstract type of topics and concepts. And I was like, listen, that's not going to work for me. I don't learn that way. I don't understand things that way. You're going to need to write it down for me and send it to me, because otherwise I'm just going to rock up and I'm not going to absorb any of this. So understanding how children, how friends, how your family, your partner, how they learn, how they'll react, that's basically what we have left is in our toolkit as human beings. Google's been around for a long time. ChatGPT's here. If you want the factual answer to something, you can go online and get that. But what can't be replicated is our ability to understand another human and to work with them and their idiosyncrasies and their weaknesses, their flaws, their strengths, whatever, and help them understand things. And that's why communicating with kids on their level is so important, is because you're going down to their level at their stage of life, and it's so important. There was a good question here about, how about if your child is younger than say 18, what would you do for them? I would probably talk to them about, under 12, I would probably look at the Barefoot for Kids book, Barefoot Investor book. It's a fantastic book for kids. They can pull things out, they can draw in it, they can do whatever they want really. And it's a really good one for learning kind of, a bit more with your hands, a bit more and with your brain. So check that out. So Rusta, you said no insurance fees mean that it's now 0.1%. Well, that's very, very low, Rusty. If you do want to tell us what super fund you're with, I would say that's probably something like Host Plus or Rest or Aussie Super, and you're probably in an index option. So there have been some really good questions here, but what I want to talk to everyone about is next week. Let me bring this up on my screen. So next week we are doing, and I'll show you this. So Rask YouTube live. Next week we have got the investor mailbag. So this episode is going to be roughly every month, this segment, and you can bring your questions to this session. This is 100% questions. It's like I'm rocking up every week and I'm just going to answer the investing questions, the personal finance questions. Obviously, I can't give personal financial advice, but I can give general information during these sessions. And that's next Thursday, same time, same place, maybe a slightly different URL, but on the Rask YouTube channel, it's all questions. It's a free-for-all. Rock up, we talk. That's basically it. So come along next Thursday, bring your questions. You can send them in advance. If you go to the Rask Media website or any of our websites, and if you go up the top, where is it? Ask a question. You see this link here, ask a question. If you click on this takes you through how you can submit questions on the Rask network. And it's, to be honest, you can ask questions on anything. Like this is actually about podcasts. Say you listen to this one, just as an example. But then it'll ask you some questions. What's your question? What do you want to be called? And you can select, let's put in, hello, test. What shall we call you? Rask Invest Live is great. That's your name for this one. And you can select Rask Live. And then that comes through to me and presto, Bob's your uncle, you're good to go. That's it. So that's how you ask a question on any of the Rask networks. I just wanted to bring that up. Rusta, you said you're with Australian Super. Colin, you share the Vanguard chart for kids. Depending on how the child learns, that's really interesting. But I love that chart, but only because, Colin, I knew this one from Money Smart. That only made sense to me when I went into this one here. This is on the Money Smart website. And I went in and I realized if I just put $5,000 in now, I put in, say, $50 a week, and it's compounded annually. And I'm like, okay, if I could put my money in super or even invest in an ETF portfolio, get 7.5% over 30 years, say, holy heck, look at this chart. What's it telling me? $312,000. Okay. Now let's say that I put in $100 a week, right? Still only starting with 5. Okay. Wow. Now it's closer to $600,000. What about if I tweak the return? So I'm getting slightly more of a return. I've lowered my fees or something like this. Maybe it's inside super. Oh, okay. Now it's $700,000. And then I remember to myself, okay, this is great. It's probably not enough to retire on, but then again, I probably also own a house that's going to go up in value if I save right. Oh, actually, my employer is going to put all those concessional contributions into my index fund through my super. So the forced savings, one of the beautiful things about our country is superannuation. I know Effie does acknowledge that there are flaws. Fair enough. But when you think about it, it's forced investing, and the government requires every single one of the working Australians, let's say there's 20 million of us, to put 11 or so % of our salary for our long-term benefit. That's pretty bloody good. And the compounding is basically that working for you. The government's even saying it's so powerful, you have to do it. And that's the reality of investing. So anyway, good conversations today. Absolutely wonderful to have Effie on the show. We are going to be back next week with the mailbag. So this is bring your questions. If you can send me some in advance, that would be absolutely positively wonderful. You can use this ask a question. So I'll just pop this in the chat now. Just select Rask Live when you're prompted. You can also head on over to the community and get more instant feedback. But I also take questions from here. When people send questions in advance and they go into the events section here. So here's the one for next week. So if you were to come in here and you were to put in your question here, most certainly it's going to be answered, because anything that you can send me in advance, I can prepare for, I can bring some research and help you get a better answer. But that's it for today, folks. We'll be back next Thursday. So you'll be stuck with me, and we've got this amazing agenda coming up. We're going to do some themed months. So we might look at thematic investing. We might look at different tools or technology you can use. So many different things. So that's all coming up on Rask Invest Live every Thursday. Thank you, everyone. Cam, Colin, everyone, Aisha, Kylie, everyone that commented today and said g'day. It's so good to see you. I'll see you this time next week. Bye for now.